Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice, musician turned entrepreneur and co-founder of 6th Ave Homes and 6th Ave Storytelling. Over the past 10 years, I have launched multiple successful businesses and have become obsessed with all things entrepreneurship and marketing. I've been on a personal quest to unpack what it takes to make and grow a great brand. One thing that I've discovered is that stories are powerful and that storytelling has the power to set a brand apart. Join me as I dive into the stories of the heavy-hitting leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and business owners in our community to hear their biggest wins, greatest losses, and their best business secrets. There's a story behind every great brand. Welcome to Stories with Soul. Stories with Soul is brought to you by my company, 6th Ave Storytelling. In 2020, we launched a marketing company on a mission to encourage entrepreneurship and make starting and growing a small business easier than ever before. Since then, we have helped hundreds of small businesses and entrepreneurs grow their brands by giving them the tools, resources, strategy, and support they need to craft and share their stories. If you are thinking about launching and growing your own brand, schedule a meetup with me today. I would love to talk to you. Head over to 6thAveStorytelling.com and let me show you how the storytelling approach can transform your marketing strategy. This episode is sponsored in part by Pre-Kindle, the platform designed to empower event creators to develop the best experiences possible for their communities. Did you know that Pre-Kindle was actually founded in DFW and is still headquarters in Dallas? Well, now you do. We love local businesses, and Pre-Kindle is one of the best. With a best-in-class platform of features, no long-term contracts, low service fees, responsive mobile-friendly event pages, and friendly and attentive support, Pre-Kindle is my personal favorite ticketing and marketing platform for any event. Anytime I'm planning something with my band, Green River Ordinance, Pre-Kindle is our go-to platform to use. With an impressive roster of event creators, venues, and entertainment destinations across the nation, Pre-Kindle is hands down the best. In DFW alone, they've partnered with incredible spaces like the Granada Theater, Panther Island Pavilion, the Kessler, Will Rogers Coliseum, the Fort Worth Modern, Tulips, Grizzly Theater, and more. If you have been to an event or venue in DFW, I promise you have likely been using Pre-Kindle and you didn't even know it. Beyond ticketing, Pre-Kindle also helps automatically promote your event. With over 500,000 subscribers in North Texas and partnerships with event discovery sites like Bands in Town, Spotify, Google, they're set up to also help you spread the word. So go to prekindle.com, that's PREKINDLE.com, and click Get Started to begin using the platform. They are on a mission to bring your event to life. All right, howdy guys. We are filming this episode in Aspen, Colorado. We are at Jazz Fest right now. Visit Fort Worth and Sundance Square brought a collection of artists down to experience the festivities. We had Liam Bridges headlining last night, and there are some great Fort Worth musicians and some Fort Worth artists. And so I am here today with Matthew Miller, also known as Sunflowerman, who's probably one of my favorite. I'm going to say new. You're not a new artist, but you are new to Fort Worth as the past few years. One of my favorite artists. He has specializes in the world of fashion. He has traveled from Milan to Paris and recently moved to Fort Worth like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago, yeah.
But just so I've been an admirer of yours. Like, I follow you on Instagram. We have a lot of mutual friends. I've loved your work. You're like the coolest dressed person in the city. And so I was stoked that I saw that you were going to be here, and I was like, I would love to interview him. So here we are, Sunflowerman, Matthew Miller. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate the invitation to come and talk. And like you're saying, I've known about you for forever, ever since I moved to Fort Worth. But yeah, we've never actually met. So this is crazy.
Until yesterday was the first time. So can you? Okay, we got to start off with the name Sunflower Man.
Yeah.
Where tell me give me some context and story there.
Yeah. So Sunflowerman is a name I've had since I was 10 years old.
Okay.
So, okay, we'll go back to Michigan. I grew up in Michigan.
Grand Rapids, right?
Grand Rapids, that's correct.
Have you ever gone to the Intersection, the music venue?
Oh,
there?
yeah.
And Founders Brewery, have you been there?
Founders Brewery, that's the like big brewery from Grand Rapids. Now, Grand Rapids has so many breweries.
Yeah.
West Michigan has probably hundreds of breweries, but Founders is kind of like the big name. They were one of the early breweries in West Michigan to really to make it big.
So I digress. I love Grand Rapids. We used to tour and we played the intersection and we.
That's great.
I go to Founders.
I had friends in high school who were in bands, so I would go see them at the intersection.
So tell your story. I interrupted because I love Grand Rapids. And I got excited when I heard that.
That makes me very happy because I love Grand Rapids and nobody else cares about Michigan.
It's a lot like
sad.
Fort Worth. It's got like small town, but
that's
it's
what
big.
I say it's like a small Fort Worth.
Yeah. Okay, so take me back. Take me to your story. Tell me the Sunflowerman story.
Yes. Growing up in Michigan, I would go to this summer camp. Every year, and 10 years old, I'm in this camp, and then one day we have a skit class. I don't know why we did it. It was just 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
But that year we had a skit class and we had to pull an item out of a bag and turn it into a skit. That was the whole thing this one day. And 10 years old, I love superheroes. So I reach into this bag. I pull out a shower curtain. I look at it. It's covered in sunflower design. So immediately I drape it over my shoulders. I tie it off. That day I became Sunflowerman.
That day, 10 years ago. And so did your friends call you that?
Well, I was 10 years old. So that's 23 years ago now. Yeah. Sunflowerman can drink legally.
That's so interesting. I did not know where it came from.
Yeah. So, I would just draw Sunflowerman on the marker board or the chalkboard in school, and then I would write about Sunflowerman in creative writing class.
And it became your alter ego.
It just became, because my name is Matthew Miller, which I appreciate. But thousands of other Americans.
General name.
I was in a small school. In my school's district, there was another Matthew Miller who I would play in basketball. There was another Matthew Miller on another small school team. There were so many of us. Interesting anecdote for me, every time I leave the country and return, I get detained at the airport now.
Okay.
Your passport is essentially your name and your birthday. That's about it.
Some other Matthew Millers have gotten in trouble.
So another Matthew Miller with my exact same birthday did something wrong somewhere in Phoenix.
Okay.
And so they detain me every time I re-enter the country. Yeah. So they usually hold me for 30 to 60 minutes.
You need to make Sunflowerman like your legal middle name.
That would really help.
Yeah.
That would go a long way.
Well, okay. Yeah. So it's become, and the superpower there is.
There is none.
There is none.
And Sunflowerman never had a superpower, even when I was writing about him. So when I graduated high school and I wanted to become a professional, whatever that meant to me at the time, Sunflowerman made more sense than Matthew Miller, especially when you're signing up for an email. Even in the early days, it was like, okay, Matthew Miller, 3657. I'm like, I don't want random numbers, but I can just get Sunflowerman, and nobody else has it. That's me.
I love it.
And so I can claim it everywhere usually.
This is a good story. I'm glad you took us there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're you are synonymous in my mind just with upscale men's fashion, and so you do a lot of things. Like you have done some recent close collaborations with Frank Moss, who was a guest we had previously. You've done NFTs, you've done all sorts of stuff. But fashion is sort of your world, and art, pen and ink, and very detailed drawings is sort of your niche. Can you just tell us or describe what it is you do and what your style is and what that.
Yeah. So my whole world really is kind of an amalgam of my lifestyle and then what I paint. What I paint reflects the way I'm dressing at the time, and how I dress often is influenced by what I'm painting. They go back and forth. So it really is kind of like one and the same in a lot of ways. But yeah, I didn't grow up with fashion as a part of my life.
You didn't? Your dad wasn't wearing crazy fancy suits?
No, nothing. A suit maybe on Saturday. That's when we would go to church. And maybe, but not always. So growing up, I was not related to that at all. I just wore old, big shirts, whatever shorts I had available, running around in the winter with moon boots and shorts and a T-shirt just through the snow. That was my life.
Yeah.
And then at some point I graduated, got into art school, and fashion started sneaking in a little bit. I don't know exactly why.
So you went to art school?
I went to a couple different art schools. I went to art school in Grand Rapids, Kendall College of Art and Design of Ferris State University. So many syllables. And I dropped out, went to a school in Atlanta, went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Atlanta, Georgia, and dropped out of that as well.
There's a theme here.
We can talk about art school all day. I have issues with the modern expression of what an art school is, and it just didn't make sense. I could already do all of the technical things
Did you
that they were teaching.
just because you were naturally gifted? Like,
because I just explored.
okay.
And there's obviously a natural talent there. But to me, a natural talent is just something you discover before you have real consciousness. And it's just there with you.
And then you got to hone it.
And then you hone it.
And then you put in the hours, you put in the
Yeah.
and I'm assuming. Well, we're gonna get into that in a second. But keep telling. So you got into fashion, sort of.
This episode of Stories with Soul is sponsored in part by Project 202, the leader in experience-driven software strategy, design, and development. Whether you're looking to build a new software solution, redesign your mobile app, or kick off a digital transformation initiative, Project 202's customized approach creates solutions that work for your customers. Customer experience drives engagement, and cultivating that experience requires a ton of attention and time. Project 202 is local and has 18 years of design leadership. This team is an expert in using customer-centric methods to build compelling, data-driven customer experiences. Wherever you're at in your business journey, the diverse team at Project 202 will guide you from idea to execution. Go to project202.com. That's projekt202.com and click Contact to begin winning the hearts of your customers and exceeding your business goals today. This episode of Stories with Soul is brought to you by TCU Neely Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. They're ranked as one of the top entrepreneurship programs in the country, and they live by the Neely promise to unleash human potential with leadership at the core and innovation in our spirit. The Institute has recently launched the Horned Frog Investment Network, which leverages the expertise and experience of entrepreneurs, business leaders, and investment professionals. They source, evaluate, and invest in the next generation of innovators. Crazy cool. And as an entrepreneur myself, I know the importance of finding great help. It can truly make or break your business. Luckily, as forward entrepreneurs, we have access to some of the top up-and-coming minds in the nation. If you're a business looking for talented students and interns, visit the Neely School of Business website to learn more about the Entrepreneurial Intern Scholars Program. They're actively looking for placements for their incredible students. They're doing amazing things, and it's exciting to see the next generation of entrepreneurs grow and flourish right here in our city.
Kind of by accident-ish, maybe some friends influenced me, part of my job maybe influenced me, but then I really got into it.
Yeah.
And this is 2011, 2012. This is the height of hashtag menswear on Tumblr and Blogspot. I don't know if you were ever a part of that
I had
scene.
friends that were, like, the men's fashion blogs kind of became a thing.
Yeah. After 2010, it like blew up for guys, just the average guy. And it really, I think, helped Americans accept fashion as a part of a lifestyle rather than just like this thing other people do. This thing like maybe a rich person does, or a musician, they'll dress up, right? They dress weird, they get fancy. Or, if you're in finance, you wear a suit. But you can express yourself in a different way with a suit, which is really interesting. I think hashtag menswear, that era, really, really like influenced a generation of men in America to be open to exploring fashion.
And it's okay to care about it, and it's
okay.
fun, and there's it used to be, historically, like that's a woman's type of thing to care about, and now it's like it's normal to.
Yeah.
But it also, like, you look at like the 20s and the 30s, and men would wear hats, and I'm a hat guy.
I love hats.
I'm a hat, but they would dress up, and there was colors and like textures and pockets where we lost a lot of that. And so anyway, so you got interested in that concept and in the idea of like and was it elevated? Was it just fashion in general, or was it this sort of like, because when I think of you and your stuff, I think of like suits. It's very like
that's great.
Refined.
I think suits really became a thing for me because that hashtag menswear moment was really all about suits. And so I like fell into that and discovered a lot about the suiting industry. So now a lot of my work has been like the high-end suit industry, watches, handmade hats, boots, like the high end, the craft side of the fashion industry. That's kind of where I like live.
Tailor, like this is custom made
Yeah.
type of. So were you buying that stuff, or were you just like looking at magazines and drawing that stuff, or it's very expensive, all of it as well.
I've never had the money for it.
Okay,
I still
yeah.
don't have the money for it.
Yeah.
I figured out a way to make this
You
lifestyle
bartering?
work. Bartering goes a long way.
I'm a fan of bartering.
Yes, bartering is great, and it's served me well.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I mean, there's so many avenues here. We can talk about business. We can talk about the 1920s era fashion because I have thoughts on that as well, and the way that it's different than today. But that's a whole rabbit hole, and if we want to go down it, we
I
can.
think we're gonna go. I want to go down that rabbit hole. But so catch me. Take the transition of I'm going to art school and I'm drawing, and now I'm into this. I'm into suits and fashion, and now, like, were you good at it? Like was there someone who's all of a sudden like you drew a picture of a guy in a suit and someone's like, I want to buy it? When did that become your niche and your thing?
Yeah, I've always been good at drawing.
Okay, since you were a kid, you were good at drawing.
Yeah, I've just been good at it. Like,
Were
it's
your
what I was known
parents
for.
encouraging you for that, or you just did it?
Yes, I think they would. I don't think they knew how necessarily,
Yeah.
but they were always open with me, like exploring that avenue. I don't think they really like knew exactly how to help, but they did what they could. They would buy me paper and pencils or whatever, and I would just explore. I had art teachers in high school and middle school who were really like, they understood how to create, so they would really push me because they saw that passion and that interest and the talent. But yeah, so I was good at that part. I could do the work part, but I really entered fashion at a time when nobody else was painting it on the fashion, on the like marketing and advertising side. Because we had discussed beforehand the behind the scenes, the design and production side, and I don't do that. I mostly do like either fine
You're
art.
not designing suits. You're
not designing.
You're capturing them in art form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So nobody else was doing that when I started doing it. I didn't know it. I just was interested, and I started painting it, and I started looking for other artists, and there was nobody. It's like, okay, I guess I'll be the one who does it, which is a double-edged sword. If nobody's doing it, maybe there's a reason. But also, if you're like a first mover, that's often like a decent opportunity to find a niche.
Yeah.
And I happened, like, the hashtag menswear again was blowing up. So I jumped in at the time when the industry was exploding. It was growing so fast. So that double-edged sword worked out because I joined at the right moment.
So were you posting your pictures on Instagram? Did you have a blog? Like how?
Yeah, it was probably
what were you-
Tumblr and Blogspot
okay.
at the
So
time.
you would paint. You call it painting or drawing because it's kind of both, right?
Yeah, both.
Painting.
Both.
So you would paint a picture, put it on your on Tumblr,
Yeah.
and then people started to notice it.
Yeah. One guy in England was starting this kind of ceramic boutonniere company, which I, as far as I know, never really took off, which is cool. But he was really the first one to pay me
Okay.
to do fashion art.
And so when someone was like, "I want to pay you to,"
That was an aha moment.
did you geek out? Were you like, "This is"?
That was great. That was
Uh-huh.
great. I went all out. I actually it led to my next gig because which actually leads me to Dallas in a way. So I was doing a part of that painting inside of a menswear boutique in Atlanta, just capturing some like behind the scenes video of me like painting. And so a couple of guys from Dallas were just touring clothiers, and they happened to see me, and they're like, "Oh, can you do like pretty basic renderings for their style guide?" Because they were starting a fashion company. And I was like, "Sure, that's great." So
Yeah.
they saw me doing that live painting, gave me his card, and I did a bunch of work for this company, Q Clothier. I don't know
Oh
if you're
yeah.
familiar.
That's kind of a famous Dallas
yeah.
brand.
So they were the second people to ever pay me before I ever knew that I was going to move to DFW. And that was huge. So the first gig led to the second gig, and it just opened my eyes to this idea that I could have a career.
And you like doing it.
And I like to do
So that you
it.
found a niche and you're like, you were into that.
Yeah.
And so what happened next? Like, how did you quit your job? Were you making enough to, was it a side hustle? And then I'm assuming
Yeah.
at some point it's like, this is not a side hustle anymore.
It was a side hustle for
Okay.
sure. Because I dropped out of art school, and then I was like, who am I? What do I do? So I would go to work. I was working at a pizzeria.
Okay.
I think I was still also working at Home Goods at the time. And I was working at a nonprofit where we would teach art.
You're doing a lot of burning the candle
Just going.
at all.
So I would do that. And then any moment I had at home, I would just paint. So it was often like go to the pizzeria, work 8 to 10 hours, get home, paint for 4 to 5 hours, go to sleep, wake up, do it again. Like that was kind of my schedule after I dropped out, because I was trying to like, if I'm not painting, who am I? Okay, so let's paint and just discover who I am as an artist.
Yeah.
And I was painting all sorts of random stuff. And then I hit on fashion and it stuck. And that was amazing. So I dropped out and I slowly just left Home Goods, and then I left the pizzeria, and I was still working at the nonprofit, but doing the fashion stuff and getting gigs. And it's like, okay, I think I can make this a full-time career. So my wife graduated.
So you were married at the time?
So at that moment, fiance.
Yeah. Okay.
And so she graduated SCAD, moved back to Fort Worth. She's from Fort Worth. And we'd already decided to get married. So I finally quit the nonprofit and moved to Fort Worth, got married, dove head on on the men's fashion stuff.
Okay.
Probably a stupid idea because I was making no money at the time. But
But you knew you were talented.
I was getting notoriety. I was getting fame and attention. People were catching on, like, who's Sunflowerman? Oh, let's get him to do this gig and that gig. It really allowed Ruth and I to travel. So my wife's name is Ruth.
Okay.
And we got married and immediately moved abroad. So I could do my work.
So you came to Fort Worth for a little bit. So you had a little stint here.
Tiny bit, yeah.
Tiny
a couple
stint here,
months.
and then y'all went to Europe.
Yeah.
And were you living in Europe? Were you just traveling around Europe? Like, did you get a house or apartment?
Depends on how you want to look at it. So we were doing Airbnbs. We would do 3 months at a time. So
what a fun life.
It was pretty amazing.
You were just renting a place for 3 months at a time?
Yeah.
Painting. And your wife's an artist too, so she was
painting as well. I think at that moment.
Y'all are like the ultimate art.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were both creating and figuring out our careers as we were living abroad. So, I mean, we were living in Portugal and Greece and Croatia, which are romantic countries, but economically depressed.
Yeah.
So it was much more affordable to live in Portugal for 3 months, fly to Greece, live there for 3 months, fly to Croatia, live there for 3 months. Like, even with the flights, it was much cheaper to do that than to live in Fort Worth.
No, interesting.
Yeah.
You kind of had a hack. It was like you hacked the system. So you're painting, and is it taking off more? Like, people are are clothes companies buying the stuff? Or?
Yeah. So I'm like working for fashion companies, for magazines, for startups, like anybody who kind of wanted attention, because at that point Instagram really became big and important. So I was really big on Instagram, like early, and got attention that way. So it was just the business slowly grew as we were traveling, and that was amazing. And to where I'm at now, like I'm really heavily in the watch industry and the fashion industry.
So at what point did you do the watches?
That kind of was concurrent with fashion. So when I went into fashion full time, I started painting watches because
these like really I mean, they almost look like a picture. Like I saw a couple, and like my initial thought was like, oh, it's a picture, and then I'm like, oh, this is a painting.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
I don't like the idea that my paintings are photorealistic. I avoid that description on my own, because when you get up close, it's very painterly.
Yeah, and it has a vibe. They all have a very unique vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know how would you describe that? Like, can you describe your vibe? Because
the way I like to describe it is that they're alive. The goal is to make the painting, just even a watch portrait, to make it feel like the watch is alive, like it's coming off the paper and it's becoming its own thing. That's the goal. That's the vibe I'm trying to create.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But there also is like, they all, even like if they're totally different, you can tell when it's one of your pieces.
Yeah, I like to think so. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question. This is a question I wanted to ask, because your stuff is so detailed and interesting. Are you super detailed in life? Like, I imagine you spending hours. I don't know how long it takes to like paint one of those watches that are so crisp and or like, I'm assuming it takes hours and hours. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Like
days, weeks.
Like, how
depending.
long is an average?
It really depends. So if you go to my Instagram and you see one of the FP Journe paintings that's 22 by 30, that can take like 4 to 6 weeks.
And how many hours a day? Or
I mean, it's usually like I'm averaging right around 4 hours a day.
Okay.
that allows me to go from one painting, and then I can work on other things. If I
Yeah.
do 8 hours on a painting,
that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of. So,
it's a lot of
so my
hours.
question is: are you in life that hyper focused and detailed, and everything is like in because it's your work, everything is very precise, like tiny penmanship, and very like your lines are like.
This episode is sponsored by the Fort Worth Business Press. As a Fort Worth entrepreneur and small business owner, the Business Press is my favorite source for news and updates about the entrepreneurial community in and around Fort Worth. I read their email newsletter literally every day. It's always full of insights and stories that really matter. Are you ready to be more connected? Sign up for their free newsletter at fortworthbusinesspress.com. But if you're like me and the newsletter just isn't enough, you can become an insider. With the code STORYTELLING10, all one word, you'll get a discount on the insider membership. Insiders receive exclusive access to special content, 24 issues of the Business Press delivered to your door each year, and discounts on event registrations and more. Join me and the Fort Worth Business Press in staying up to date on the people, companies, and issues that matter most to Fort Worth. This episode is brought to you by my good friends at Visit Fort Worth. Visit Fort Worth is the official destination marketing organization of the 13th largest city, and I would say the greatest city in the United States, dedicated to promoting Fort Worth as a premier business and leisure destination with thriving centers of creativity, culture, and commerce. Visit Fort Worth is the parent organization of the Fort Worth Herd, the Fort Worth Film Commission, Fort Worth Sports Commission, Visita Fort Worth, and Music Initiative Here Fort Worth. They are doing a lot of amazing things. For more information on Visit Fort Worth, head over to visitfortworth.com and follow them on social at Visit Fort Worth. Are you a small business owner or an entrepreneur? Do you do marketing for a small business? If so, I have something that I want to give you, and it's totally for free. We've put together a free resource at 6appstorytelling.com/download, and it's the secrets, it's the tips, it's the tricks, it's the tools of the trade. It's literally everything we do at 6app Storytelling to help small businesses grow. Go download it today at 6appstorytelling.com/download.
I'm very obsessive about my art.
Does that translate to anything else?
I don't know if it translates to anything else.
Like, is your desk messy, or is your desk everything?
Terrible.
Oh, really? Okay.
You should come to the studio. It's downtown. Come to the studio. Well, maybe it won't be a part of this, but you'll get to have a first-hand experience. It can sometimes just be a disaster.
Okay.
Yeah, but the painting.
And are you are you have a calendar? Are you like pretty organized, or are you?
I'm fairly organized. I take on too much. I have a hard time saying no.
Uh-huh.
So as much as I'm organized, it becomes a disaster because I'm like, oh yeah, I love to do that. Oh yeah, I want to do that. Oh yeah, I think I can make that happen. And then things stack up. So as much as I get organized, it doesn't help that I say yes to everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it translates a little bit, but when you're painting, it like clicks on this another level. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. I'll say it even in another way. Maybe it's not. It's another anecdote of where painting takes me. So I would do basketball, tennis, soccer in high school. I was on all the sport teams, and I loved it. Great in practice, made the teams. I was on varsity. I was fourth singles, sometimes third singles in tennis. So I was like up there.
You're an athlete. You're an athlete.
When it came time to perform, disaster. Nightmare.
How come?
I have no idea. I don't know what it is, but it's terrible. So I would always think why did they let me on the team? Oh yeah, I tried out really well. I could compete really well in practice, but a terrible life.
The pressure of people.
But when I'm painting, everybody else disappears. I'm here, right?
You're in your own
So
world.
I do live painting at events.
And you're not even paying attention to.
No. I did a live painting at a club in New York at the top of this high rise. Oh man, whoa! I can't remember his name. This will be an anecdote in a minute when I can remember everybody's names. So De Bethune is a really high-end Swiss watch company. Here, I got it. It's come back to me. And they were doing a partnership with Swiss Beats. Okay. So Swiss Beats and De Bethune, they were doing a launch in New York. So I did a live painting in this club, super dark, lights flashing all around me. And I'm just squinting and trying to paint. People are bumping up against me. Drinks are spilling. People are drunk talking in my ear. Doesn't matter. This painting is amazing.
Is it?
Yeah. I think I went home with De Bethune. He should have gone home with Swiss Beats, but
wow.
Whatever. Yeah,
So
great
you
painting.
get to do stuff like that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any of those moments where it's like, I can't believe I'm here? Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, I had that moment as I was stepping back. Swizz is like holding up his watch to the painting. There's getting video and photo. I step out of the way, and I'm talking to the security guy, his security guy. I'm like, they have no idea I'm here. And he's like, no, they don't. I was like, yeah.
but still.
Right, so it's like amazing I'm here, but also like nobody will remember that I was there.
Yeah,
They'll remember the
but
painting
he's
was there.
gonna have the painting. I mean,
Yeah.
do you have any other sort of stories like that of like, man, this was a moment where that my like the kid from Grand Rapids is like in this
Yeah.
room, or
So I think
something about my paint, like,
probably on a smaller scale,
mm-hmm.
In the fashion industry and like the menswear and like the clothing industry, Luciano Barbera is a big name.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of retired now. He's kind of sold off the business, but I got to go to his home in Biella, Italy.
Wow.
And like have dinner with him and his wife and sit out on the
because
backyard.
he liked your paintings.
He didn't really know who I was as much, but I got brought in by the company.
By his team.
And yeah, I got to meet him. So I sat across from him and did like a live portrait of him. So that was amazing. Like that was a crazy moment.
Yeah.
Took the train from Milan to Biella, got up into like the mountains where his home is. Amazing views, great like hospitality. So that was a crazy moment for
Yeah.
me too. A smaller scale, like everybody knows Swizz Beats.
Mm-hmm.
But in the fashion, like in the menswear industry, Luciano Barbera is a name.
Is a
Yeah.
It's good. So you mentioned it earlier, the bartering. Tell me, tell me about that, because it sounds really fun.
Yeah.
I love like the hustle of like, I'll trade you this for this.
First off, terrible business person.
you are.
Terrible.
Let's talk. Okay, tell me about business and bartering and all the
Yeah,
things.
we'll try to go broad there. So bartering is great for me because it's lower stakes. Because I get there's a lot of pressure. If money's on the table, then I think I feel some of that pressure, like when I'm doing basketball or tennis again. But if it's bartering, I'm like, okay, I can do whatever I want. I'll make it
Yeah.
amazing. And there's like low stakes. I didn't give me money.
But these suits are like thousands of
Yeah,
dollars.
it costs tons of money.
And-
I mean, yes and no. Like it depends. Like there's a lot in the industry where like some of it's really high end, some of it's kind of low end, and maybe you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
So I have a mix of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, like bartering is great because sometimes I'll get a little bit of cash and then the clothing as like the
Yeah.
final
And that's
payment
part
or
of your
something.
persona. I mean, people are not just buying your paintings,
Oh, yeah.
which they are, but they are buying you as a.
Right.
I'm assuming you hate the word influencer,
Sure.
but
sure.
but you have this persona and style that kind of elevates the painting because you dress like it, you look like it, you have this vibe.
Right. Well, I think that goes to branding, right?
Yeah, the brand. Yeah.
It is the brand. Like I love it. Like I love dressing up. So it's not I'm not putting on airs or anything. Like I like to dress the way I like to
Yeah,
dress.
it makes you feel.
I feel great. I mean, when I first started getting into fashion, when I was in Atlanta, I would go to this coffee shop and I would start wearing these suits while I was like drawing, and people would like see me and they would give me these big smiles. I'm like, no, I'm the only one here. They're smiling at me. I'm like, the only difference was I was dressing up. I was like elevating my look. And I was like, okay, this is weird and interesting. So on one end, like it makes me feel good because I get this experience from the people around me, but people react different.
Yeah.
And first reactions are important.
Yeah. It totally
So
is.
yeah, so as a part of that brand, like I get a dopamine hit from wearing it, but also getting people's reactions. But then, yeah, I just like the style. Like I like the evolution of fashion. Menswear is very iterative, so it doesn't change very
what
much.
Does that mean? Iterated.
Like
It doesn't change.
Small
okay.
changes over time.
So you started to hit on 1920s fashion,
Oh yeah,
and why was that so pivotal and
I
classic?
love that era, and I don't know why. So a lot of my style is influenced by 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. I don't know.
Even
like,
your penmanship kind of feels that
it's-
era.
It has this like older era. Honestly have no idea where that comes from. Like I don't recall a movie or like we didn't watch old movies when I was growing up, so I wasn't drawn to that. I don't know what it is, but something about when I got into fashion, like that was what I was drawn to. But there was something about that era that was a uniform, right? You dressed that way because you had to dress that way. You didn't necessarily do it because you thought it was cool.
Yeah.
You wore what you were supposed to wear if you wanted a job.
Yeah.
And I mean that leads us to our era, which is much more egalitarian. Everything is much more accessible. So you can wear a jogger, you can wear a suit, you can wear street style, you can wear whatever you want basically, but you can afford to wear anything. This goes down the rabbit hole of the the environmental impact of fashion on the world, and the egalitarian aspect, the ability for everybody to afford to look good, to dress well, to impress their boss, to fit any genre is great. But also it's led to this, it's more supported by this era of cheap clothing, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. It's good in the sense that it's accessible, but it's bad in the sense of like how the exploitive nature of
Right, because in the
where it
1920s,
comes
you
from.
would have one suit and that's what you wore to everything, right? But if you were rich, you could have a new suit for every week. You could have a suit for the morning and the evening and for your cocktail. You had a multitude of clothes and you could tell that yours was clean and the other person's was not. So yes, everybody dressed the same, but there was a clear dichotomy between rich and poor, which yes, you could say that's the same for today, but it's much more blurred.
Yeah.
There are no real clear defining lines. There are some, but like there's a big gray area, which is great. Like that ability to go from low to high and not have that clear distinction of like, oh, you're poor, or oh yeah, you're rich. Like you kind of have to question sometimes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's the egalitarian side, but also the reason we have it is this cheap labor, cheap products, bad, poor environmental.
And part of, would you feel like you're
regulation.
kind of an ambassador on craft boutique, like?
I like to think so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I think so. I feel like I have as a spectator. If you and Frank I've known
Yeah.
for like, but just it inspires me. Like I appreciate it and like seeing how they're made. Like
Right.
so, it to me like you are sort of an ambassador for like there's, like just like a craft beer is better than a Bud Light.
Yeah.
Of craft things that like it takes time. It takes like your paintings take so much time.
Yeah.
And cultivating just an appreciation for those type of things. Can you so at some point you were traveling around the country. You get all these followers on Instagram. People know who you are, especially in that industry. And then y'all moved back to Fort Worth. You and your wife moved back to Fort Worth.
Yeah, so
which
we're
is
living abroad.
not historically the fashion capital of
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I mean Fort Worth is great. I love
until
Fort Worth.
now.
When Ruth and I got married 9 years ago, I said, I don't think I can ever move here. I don't think I can live here.
Yeah.
And then 4 years ago, she's like, I want to go back to school. Fort Worth just made the most sense for her to do that. But we never planned on even being here this long. 4 years is a long time for us to be in one place. And like Fort Worth has changed so much. It's grown so much. It's progressed a lot in ways that are appealing to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the same for everyone.
And you're getting to help shape it.
I
feel like.
I hope so.
You're really plugged into the artist community here and Sundance Square and all, like that's why you're here.
Right.
But also like you're elevating the fashion game here, whereas if you're in New York or something, you're one of many, but here you're getting to sort of define and raise the stakes and speak into it and shape it. I don't know if you feel like you're getting to do that or.
Yeah, I mean sometimes yes, and then sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? But I as an artist, I have like these really high highs and really low lows.
Which is typical of artists, I would say. So I'm pulling up my notes because I have a few questions. Yeah. But are you are you gonna be here for a while? Like.
I mean,
Does Fort Worth get to claim Sunflowerman for a little while?
We'll be here for a little bit longer for sure. Who knows? We're pretty nomadic, so we'll probably move on at some point. Right now, things are amazing. Like my studio's downtown. I get to work with Sundance, which is fantastic.
You just did this big installation.
Did a big installation downtown. It's 3 stories of basically installing vinyl on windows, but it covers 3 stories of this building downtown.
Yeah.
Kind of created a whole identity around this called Fashion World. So
you literally took over a building.
Yeah.
It's cool.
So that was pretty exciting, and in that way, like I get to put at least a small imprint on Fort Worth, which is great, and I hope that imprint is a good thing, right? It's pretty easy to like take. Hopefully, I'm able to get like. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder because most of my business is not in Fort Worth, right? In fashion and watches, like my clients are elsewhere.
Take me to the business side of what you do. And you mentioned that you're like I don't. Do you put your stuff for sale on your website, or is it private people are commissioning things? Or
I have done it on the website, but mostly it's by
word of mouth.
By word of mouth at this point. I've been doing fashion and watches for a decade now, so at this point, my name is out there.
Yeah. Do you have a manager
No.
or a representative?
No.
You said
I had an agency at one point, and it was not good. But they were a big agency, and they had like really big names, and I was just not really a consideration.
So someone comes and is like, I want you to paint this suit or paint this watch or paint.
Yeah.
And you throw out a price.
Yeah, it's me. It's all me, which is a terrible idea.
You said you have a hard time. Does your wife step in and like help?
Oh, she'll chastise me when I do it wrong. But yeah, I mean, we together learned a lot those early days, traveling around and.
Because you're an entrepreneur, you're not just an artist. You are an entrepreneur. Like when it becomes you're a marketer. You're doing the books. You're doing sales. You have to do it all, and I think that's what most people don't understand about an artist is like if you're professional and making a living doing it, you're wearing a lot of hats.
Especially in this era, like social media has opened up the doors to anyone being an artist, but you have to do it all. You have to market. You have to do sales. You have to check your finances, and you have to create the art.
You got to pay taxes.
I actually like paying taxes. Actually makes me happy. I want to contribute, but God, do I hate doing my taxes? It's the worst.
It's a lot of work.
Oh my gosh, I have thoughts on taxes. That's a whole other thing.
Do you have was there any like big lessons you learned specifically either on the business side or the marketing side in doing this that I kind of wish someone had I wish I knew earlier?
Yeah. I don't like giving advice generally. What I found is everyone's story is their own. Mm-hmm. And what worked for me is not necessarily going to work for anyone else. I try to share advice in the form of storytelling. How did I get where I am?
Yeah.
And then, okay, how do I relate to you? Like what's similar about us that you can take what I've done to maybe help you grow. But I mean, one thing that I've learned is to negotiate, right?
Okay.
Especially the early days as an artist, you're like, I just want to get paid anything.
Yeah.
Charge more money.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
like,
a great lesson.
Hard lesson.
That's a hard lesson.
It's hard for me. Like I don't like taking money. Mm-hmm. I hate it.
You do it because you love it. You do. Yeah.
But I have to take money.
You have to.
And slowly I'm learning, okay, there are things in life that I want to do. So I have to take more money. To live a middle-class life in America is actually pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So
don't undervalue your work.
Don't undervalue your work. Charge more. People are not going to buy it, right? Some people will not buy your work.
And your art's not for everybody.
Your art's not for everyone.
That's a great bit of advice. I know you don't like giving advice, but that is really okay. In the same vein, it's sort of non-business related. Like if you could go back to Matthew 10, 15 years ago, is there anything you would say to your younger self?
Right. I like that question because it's not advice for everyone, but it's anecdotal. Advice for myself: be less anxious. It's going to be okay. And that's just in the creation part. Like when there's so much pressure I have, like when I'm paid money to create something, I want it to be the best. Mm-hmm. And I think I lose myself a little bit sometimes because I'm anxious and I try too hard often. Mm-hmm. Just relax. People come to you for a reason. Do your thing. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah.
Was there a point where you felt free to do your thing? 'Cause as an artist, that's kind of a defining moment when you're finally like, this is what I do. I'm good at this. People like.
Yeah, I think there was a point where, in the last couple of years, I've decided who I am.
Yeah.
There's some artists find it early. Yeah, some of us take a while. Like I've been painting for a decade in fashion and watches. I only recently discovered like where I think my sweet spot is in the last couple of years, and that's been liberating.
Yeah.
Knowing who I am is liberating.
That's fun.
Because then I can charge more money because I know what I'm doing. Where before, like if I'm experimenting, why would I charge a ton of money? Because I don't even know what I'm doing with this. And I was always jumping around from thing to thing early on. Yeah. Different styles, different mediums. I tried to do digital art for a while, which I love. But after 2 years, like this isn't me. I don't love it enough. So yeah, I think calm down. It'll be okay. Just relax a little bit.
Less anxious.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And you've gotten to also do. You have your hands in a few different things. I read some. I don't know if that's true that you're starting a coffee bean?
So
Is that a thing?
so I'm still working at it. Like
Is that
it's
a
a
thing you're
long
doing?
process, longer than I thought. But there's going to be a Sunflowerman coffee.
Because you're a coffee.
I love coffee.
You're like a coffee fanatic. And
Yeah.
I read you have like all these espresso. Is that from your
Yeah, I have a coffee journal over here.
a coffee journal?
so-
what is a
so
coffee journal? He's going to get it. Stand by. I don't think I've ever heard of a coffee journal. All right, he's bringing it back. And of course, it's going to be like beautifully illustrated and written.
So here we are. Here's the coffee journal. That's the cover. I don't care about the cover that much. The cover is just like I need an easy reminder which of my journals is the coffee one. But then we get into it. And what I illustrate my coffee with a Sharpie
Is this like
pen.
a rating system?
I have done a rating system in the past, and I found that to be very contentious. And I don't mean to stir up trouble. So I haven't rated, like I haven't done a rating system in a long time.
You're just.
I'm just documenting. Okay, this is the coffee I had on this day.
Where did this come from?
I don't know. But I have found coffee enthusiasts do this. Like I had one guy who took one of the.
So you have a great cup and you write it down.
Even if it's a bad cup,
even if it's bad,
I will
still do
probably
it?
write a note like, "Don't have this one again."
Don't drink this again.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is like
And
I think number
espresso's
5.
espresso's your thing,
I love espresso.
and you learned that in your travels.
Yeah. Started in Atlanta. Atlanta is
flip
the
through this
coffee
real quick.
hub of the Southeast.
Look how beautiful this is.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like something you buy at a store.
So yeah, I just love my coffee, and I wanted to document it. So when we were living abroad, wherever I was, that's the coffee I wanted to do. So when we were in Greece, it was Greek coffee or Turkish coffee, depending on where you're from. But I would do Greek coffee. If I was in Italy, I would brew it on a mocha, or go out to a coffee shop and have an espresso, like a proper Italian espresso. And yeah, just everywhere I would go, I would try to have the coffee that
So
way.
it became sort of a hobby or like an outlet or more than just a drink. This is
It's an experience. It's a lifestyle.
And you're studying it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sunflowerman coffee is going to be, what's the vibe?
It's a bit surreal. Defined by, so the packaging is a watercolor image that I can show you. I have it in the studio when you visit to see the mess. But it's a watercolor. It's kind of surreal. It's a visual of me, like a version of me. And my goal, and this is part of the negotiations we're working out, is I love Ethiopians. I love a fruity coffee, a light roast that has a nice sharpness, but a nice like bright fruity notes to it. So that's the goal. That's the vibe.
That's
for the
exciting.
Sunflowerman coffee.
I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
So dabbling in that. You've done some big art installations downtown. What else is next? Is there anything just on the horizon, whether it's
Working on a
pieces or projects?
a watch painting rent. I'm trying to really delve more into the watch industry.
Okay.
I really like watches. I really want to give it its due. My watch paintings take so much time because before when I was doing fashion, I could whip out like 5 illustrations in a day. And now that I'm doing watch paintings, it's 4 to 6 weeks to finish one, and
Man.
it really messes with my mind. But to give the industry the proper attention it needs, so I can build that part of the business, because I love the genius of watches, from the mechanical engineering, just like the human genius, to the conception of time. This thing we developed to understand the world we live in, just accidentally, like we had to. So time is just our expression of living, and we're trying to define it by a watch. So the engineering that goes into define this ethereal idea,
Yeah.
the design that goes into making the watch appealing but also legible, and then just the different aspects all involved with it, the marketing side of it, the storytelling. So much of the watch industry is about passing on the watch from one generation to the next.
Yeah, it's an
again,
heirloom.
Like with suits, I like the high end, the things that will last. The things that are personal, I like that with watches as well. Things that are made, either designed really well or like crafted really well.
You can pass it on to your children or your
Pass it on.
grandchildren.
Yeah.
And it's like if you earn it. You like.
Right.
There's also
There's
kind
that side
of
of it
these
too.
big watches are associated with milestones.
Right,
You're
right.
retiring and you get to watch something. So that's a big focus coming up, is just diving even deeper into that
Yeah.
industry. Okay, my final question. This has been a ton of fun. In fact, actually, before I go to my final deep question, Do you have, what's your like go-to like pen? I'm just curious. Like, do you have like
Sharpie pen?
Sharpie pen.
Sharpie pen. So I do feel a little
what
bit
millimeter?
guilty.
What like?
They only have one size.
Oh, so everything you do is just a Sharpie pen. It's like
Yeah, especially in this. If I'm doodling a Sharpie pen, if I'm doing my actual like art, I use a brush and ink. So I'm dipping my brush.
Oh, so
into
those
ink.
fine lines are with a brush.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, when I'm documenting
Just a
like
plain old
journal,
Sharpie pen.
Sharpie pen.
Okay.
You can get it anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Basically, works great. I do feel guilty because they're not refillable. They're really just like throw them away, and I
Yeah.
hate that. So I'm trying to find an alternative. But right now, like, they're an amazing tool.
Yeah, that's fun. I wanted to ask that. Okay, last question. What does legacy mean for you? Like, what do you hope people, 10, 20, 30 years from now what do you hope people will say or remember, or what do you hope your contribution will be?
Yeah, I don't necessarily care if people remember me, because people forget. Like, everyone's forgotten eventually, right?
True.
I hope that what I do helps to grow Fort Worth, even if people don't remember. And then even if I move on, right? Wherever I end up, I hope what I do can contribute to positive growth. That's it. I don't need to be remembered. I just want to be able to contribute.
Yeah, I love it. Great answer. Well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, this is great.
This was a really, really fun interview. So I'm going to take you up on the tour of the.
Please. Yes.
to get
Yes.
some pictures of that. So guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Stories with Soul. If you enjoyed the interview and like what you heard, please help us out and share, subscribe, and like anywhere you listen to podcasts. When you share and subscribe, it is insanely helpful and allows us to keep producing new episodes. You can always join us directly in the studio by watching the video version on our website, 6thAveStorytelling.com. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. You're obsessed with your business, and we want to make the world obsessed with it too. Thanks for listening.